Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm Anne's assistant, and I'm going to demonstrate cutting with her magic button. So it's an adapter for one of the Olfa rotary cutters. So you add it on to the edge of the rotary cutter, and it automatically gives you a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you run your, first you're going to iron your freezer paper pattern pieces to the right side of your fabric. And then when you've got extra fabric here, you can just sort of block it off. Get it out of the way. And then what you're going to do is use your magic button, line it up with the edge of your pattern piece, and then it automatically gives you an approximate 1/4 inch seam allowance when you run the button along. So it just is a spacer, moves your blade over. Which is really helpful with curves. So you can just block off a section, and then you can use, I'm right-handed, so I'll use my left hand to pivot the fabric and just run my magic button and rotary cutter along and trim up these pieces here. We're using white fabric for our doves, and it's going to go on top of our background, which we're using these kind of darker gold fabrics. So we give ourselves extra seam allowance so that the dark fabric doesn't show through. And we can do that with the magic button as well. So we're just going to move our magic button over a little bit rather than running it directly next to our pattern piece. We just give ourselves a little bit of space, and that little bit of extra seam allowance will help hide any darker fabric that is underneath.
All right, we're ready to place the background pieces for the center drunkard's path. We're going to put the dark background pieces down first. Generally, we build from the background to the foreground. So now we're just going to place these where they're going to be used, close to where we're going to use them. Not exactly on top, but close to. Now we're ready to start the building process. We're going to build these background pieces. We place them close to where they're going to be. So we're going to be using a sealing iron and glue stick. I keep my glue stick in a little shot glass with a baby wipe in there to keep it moist, to keep it fresh. And so let's place the first piece. So we just, to do that, we line it up. You have the line from the drawing, and you can also take a peek by folding back the seam allowance. So you just very carefully place the piece, just eyeballing these lines that they go through, and then we seal it down. The sealing iron has a nice point on it. You go around and seal the seam allowances down, as well as the whole body of it. It just feels like you're just tacking it down. Now the next piece, this is going to touch here, just here. So I use a small cutting board as a mat. Now all that has to be turned here is that one edge where it's going to touch. So I use glue stick in an outward motion, have the freezer paper facing me, and then I use my fingers to roll it back. Just follow the edge of the paper and finger press. That's all the pressing you have to do in this whole quilt top. And then we do the second gluing by putting glue on the turn back edge of the seam allowance, because that's what holds the seam allowance, and using our registration marks, line that up. And then you seal that down. You just build one piece at a time. We're just going to go around building the entire background before we put any of the white dove pieces on top. And so now this one, it touches this whole length. So that has to be turned back. Use glue stick in an outward motion for the first gluing. Have the freezer paper facing you and roll that back. Follow the paper. That's our turned edge. Finger press. And now we need the second gluing because the French fuse is going to hold the body of everything together, but there's no French fuse or sticky there, so that's where we use the glue stick on the second gluing for the seam allowance. Using those registration marks to line it up. And that's the way you proceed to fill in all of the background pieces.